Many of you know I received a life-saving liver transplant about 2.5 years ago. I was one of the lucky ones. Every year, thousands of people die simply because of the lack of donors. Tonight, we begin a series of reports looking at donorship through the eyes of a wife, a mother, and family who have faced the difficult decision of whether to let their loved one live on in others.
Hello, I want to first say thank you. I will be forever grateful that your family and loved ones made the selfless decision to donate and give me a second chance at life. I sent him out the door at 7 o'clock. He was installing a patio door. I can now picture my future with my family and my son. And his coworker called and said that I needed to get to the job site right away. He had fallen off a ladder. Hopefully this letter will not cause you additional pain. My intention is to tell you that your loved one saved my life. I see his tool pouch. I don't see him. His coworker comes around the corner with tears in his eyes, and I was just like, it's bad.
Saturday, August 23rd. It was the last time that Sonia Radican would talk to her 45-year-old husband, Dave. Despite brain surgery, the swelling in his head continued to get worse.
At 10 o'clock, they did the reflexing testing, and 2 of them did it and classified him as brain dead.
Dave Radican had become one of the rare 2% of people who have the potential to be an organ donor, the 2% who are declared brain dead, yet they remain on a ventilator that keeps their organs from being destroyed.
If the heart is still going, it's still keeping those organs perfused, or keeping that oxygen and that blood to those organs so they're actually able to be transplanted.
Sonia says Dave always wanted to be a donor, but she was reluctant.
They see the yes on your license and they're like, oh, they're a donor, we'll just keep them alive too. He's like, no, they don't. No, they don't. He says, but you do what you want. But this totally has changed my outlook at everything.
This is the Communications Center of the Iowa Donor Network office in Des Moines. There's someone here manning the phones 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're getting calls about potential donors and making phone calls to doctors, funeral homes, and most importantly to families. About 65,000 calls a year.
You know, I'm on the phone with the families for up to 30, sometimes 45 minutes to an hour, discussing their loved ones, so you are able to develop relationship, even if it's over the phone.
My main concern was, I said, I don't want him to leave. I want him to stay in Sioux City.
If the patient dies in Sioux City and the heart is going to go to Iowa City, we would help facilitate getting that team up to Sioux City to do the recovery and back to Iowa City to do the transplant.
Once you sign to become a donor, it's not at any cost to the family. The donor network does take care of that cost, which I didn't care, but that was something that was pretty neat to know too.
In David Radican's case, the transplant teams came to Mercy Medical Center in Sioux City. Now, you won't believe how many people and families that this man who grew up in Rhode Island, a Red Sox and Patriots fan, helped thanks to his decision and his family's decision, most importantly, to become a donor. We'll have more on that tomorrow right here on Siouxland News at 5, 9, and 10.
I'm sure that was a very hard but brave decision for the families to make.
Very difficult, and Sonia is a very eloquent spokesperson, and look forward to hearing more from her tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for sharing that story, Larry.
Yep. Many people ask if I know the person who donated their liver so I could have a life-saving liver transplant. Well, I've written a letter of thanks that's supposed to go to the donor's family. I have heard nothing back in the more than 2.5 years since my surgery, and that's okay. But the story is different for a Siouxland woman who lost her husband in August.
In the early morning hours of Monday, August 25th, I received a call from the hospital telling me that I had a potential donor match. I remember praying that this was not a dream and how much I wanted to live.
It's a letter from the 36-year-old man who received both lungs from Sonia Radican's husband, David.
Despite all the pain I was in and the breathing tube down my throat, I could take a deep breath. The deepest breath I have ever taken.
David, a contractor for Lowe's, had fallen off a ladder while installing an upper-level patio door. Hours later, he was declared brain dead.
And there's maybe 20 or so tests that they would do to see if a person is actually brain dead. And in Iowa, that has to be done by 2 physicians on 2 separate occasions.
Hospitals that participate in Medicare and Medicaid are required to refer deaths and imminent deaths to local organ procurement organizations like the Iowa Donor Network or Nebraska Organ Recovery System. There's even a donor network coordinator for this region at Mercy Medical Center.
It was an amazing experience. And they just let the trauma teams know that this was what kind of a patient he was, and he's just not a person with organs, you know?
David Radican was 45 years old, but age is no limit to who can become a donor.
And we've had tissue donors that have been over 100 years old in the last few years. We've had organ donors that have been in their 80s. And then, of course, the other side of that is, very young newborns and that sort of thing can also be organ and tissue donors.
One tissue donor can impact 60 to 100 lives.
Angie Capps is among the 140 people who work for the Iowa Donor Network. They work closely with donor families, often dispelling myths like you can't have an open casket funeral if you donate organs, eyes, bones, or tissue.
We ask them, what are your plans? What are the funeral plans? Is your loved one going to wear a tank top, is a sundress? And then we make sure that that funeral can go off as scheduled, and we recover other grafts.
We recover split thickness skin, which is very thin, actually thinner than a piece of paper, and that's primarily used in burn patients. And it lasts about 10 days, provides pain relief, keeps some of the bad bacteria out, keeps some of the good fluids in.
A thicker layer of skin can also be taken to help burn victims and in breast reconstruction. Even bones and tendons can be used.
One example is if somebody has cancer in one of their long bones, oftentimes they're going to lose that entire limb. Now what our surgeons can do is remove, if it's a cancerous femur, remove that femur, replace it with a donated femur, and that person's not going to lose their leg as a result.
The Iowa Donor Network is one of the few recovering descending thoracic aorta. The aorta is the largest artery in the body, which distributes oxygenated blood.
And that's being used primarily in combat zones. And the aorta is a really specialized tissue, and it's preventing soldiers from losing limbs.
Sonia and her sons Michael and Mark wish they'd never had to face the decision to donate. But it does bring them comfort that David helped change the lives of so many others.
I just wanted all parties to know that I live today because of your loved one and because of the sacrifices your family made. I would love to hear your thoughts regarding this letter, but truly understand the need for privacy and space. Once again, thank you, Lance. It's amazing.
No doubt, amazing. As you heard, both of Dave's lungs went to a 36-year-old man. His liver went to a 61-year-old woman. One of the kidneys was transplanted into a 62-year-old woman. The other went to a 70-year-old man. His corneas went to a severely vision-impaired 65-year-old woman, and they recovered his valves and skin tissue that's being used for burn victims. And of course, Dave's heart went to a 58-year-old man who unfortunately did not survive that transplant, but out of tragedy comes at least something good for many, many other people.
Now, Larry, I was surprised to find out from you yesterday that your family can override your decision to be a donor. How do you
You may have it on your license or wherever that you want to be a donor, but your next of kin will be the final decider of what actually happens. Now, one way to possibly get around that is an advance directive, but I'm told, 9 out of 10 times the families, once this has been talked about with your family, will decide to move forward with the donation.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.